agenda, but we'll call this special, the 21st, right, November 21st, area planning meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we don't have a secretary, I'll do roll call. Daryl Drew. Here. Brian Ron. Here. Darren Price. Leota King.
Present.
Brian Durham. Present. Gary Naylor.
Present.
Dale Munson.
Present.
Bob Stewart.
Present.
Bill Mackey. We have a quorum. The only item on our agenda is the proposed tax incrementing finance district. Is Mr. Shanahan on yet?
No.
Okay, we will wait a few minutes
I just texted him. He's hopping on, so he should be here momentarily.
for the Zoom call. I guess I could give a brief history of how we got here. Probably a year-ish ago, maybe 2 years ago, the Redevelopment Commission sought a way to raise funds for redevelopment. The state kind of limits what cities and towns and municipalities can do, and tax incrementing finance is the only option for redevelopment commissions to raise funds specifically for redevelopment. The mayor and the redevelopment commission created a map and then expanded the map and changed the map and finally got to the map that we have now. And now that Mr. Shanahan is on, I will let him have the floor to explain TIF. Can you hear us, Jimmy?
Yeah, you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first I'll start out with just kind of an overview of TIF. When you create a tax increment finance district, you establish a boundary for the district for targeted redevelopment as needed over time. And you also freeze the assessed value within what we call an allocation area as of January 1 of the year in which you take action. So assuming that all the approvals are done this year, the base assessed value year will be the assessed value as of January 1 of 22. And what that will allow you to do is to, as AV goes up over time, take that increment. So the increment's generated from the increase in AV over the frozen year, and then any funds that are raised are available for redevelopment projects in that area. Or if they're not used if there are no projects that are like on tap, that would be released back to the underlying political subdivisions as if the TIF wasn't even created. And that's the annual determination that's made each year. And so that's kind of fundamentally, that's the way the TIF works, is you have growth in AV over the frozen base, and that increment, and the I in the TIF is that incremental growth over the base year. And then the life of the TIF is 25 years from the date of the first obligation, is that if there ever is one, that's paid from those TIF dollars. So as soon as you tie up TIF dollars, that sets the sunset on the TIF itself. As far as process goes, the first step has already been taken by the Redevelopment Commission. That was the adoption of a declaratory resolution. And that declaratory resolution set forth certain statutory findings and laid out the boundaries of the TIF and included a map and parcels of what will be included. And then that's the first approval. And then tonight is the second step. So the Planning Commission's job is to ensure that the plan, which is essentially economic redevelopment and public infrastructure within the area, fits within the overall development plan of the city. And if that is a finding you make tonight, then that finding will be sent to the council for their approval. And then the final step is the public hearing at the Redevelopment Commission, at which time a confirmatory resolution would be adopted that would confirm all the findings and then would establish the area.
Does anybody have any questions?
Has the area already been decided upon?
Yes, and once Mr. Shanahan is done, I was going to invite Mayor Frank up to talk about the allocation area.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Once the assessed value, I'm just trying to clarify what you said. Once the assessed value is determined or locked, all the taxing entities still receive the tax dollars for that assessment? Any growth goes towards the TIF?
Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. And the only caveat would be if the school or some other entity does a referendum, those referendum dollars are outside of the TIF. They aren't captured.
Okay.
So if, for example, the school or any other entity decided they want to do an operating referendum or a capital referendum, those dollars are excluded from TIF. But otherwise, the levy applied to the incremental growth would be captured in the TIF fund, and the AV that's not frozen would operate as normal.
Okay, so once this revenue starts coming into the redevelopment commission, who oversees those dollars? Does the city council have final approval on the budgets that the redevelopment commission spend those dollars, or is it all left up to the commission?
Well, the redevelopment commission can only use it for improvements. So either reimburse for improvements that are made or pay for improvements themselves. And to the extent they're not using the funds, then they would be released back to the overlapping subdivision, political subdivisions. And before the commission could, for example, they couldn't sell bonds without the council's approval. And beyond that, I get over my skis, and it's just back in the regular redevelopment operation of how they do their budget and expenditures on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. What are the limitations on how the funds are actually spent?
They can only be spent for improvements that are in or serving the area.
Public improvements?
You're also permitted a certain percentage that could be used for educational and vocational training. But beyond that, the primary use of funds is just for improvements within the area.
Okay, public investment then.
Yeah.
Sidewalks,
That's what I
water,
thought.
sewer.
It's been a while since I've dealt
I'm
with it.
sorry?
Like things like roads, sidewalks, water, sewer improvements.
So they couldn't purchase a property, rehab it, and resell it?
They can. The redevelopment commission could acquire property.
Yeah.
What they cannot do is they don't have the power of eminent domain. That was stripped several years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Have you also been aware, I don't know what boundaries you've set, but you must be careful on any conflicts of interest from those approving this too?
In what respects?
Let's move out a couple miles and get my property too. And it's happened.
The property owners will continue to pay their property taxes.
Okay.
So there's not necessarily a conflict unless you were voting to approve a project that you would benefit from. So if you're acquiring your property.
Okay.
But the creation of the area itself doesn't give rise to any conflicts.
Okay.
So the taxpayers won't know where they're when they pay their bill twice a year. They're just paying their bill. The county is one will allocate it and chop it up and send it to where it belongs, where it's supposed to go. So the taxpayer's bill won't see any difference.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Shanahan? All right. Mr. Mayor, would you like to?
Well, good evening. When I first came in office, I sat down with the redevelopment commission, trying to get a full understanding what the redevelopment commission was and what they could and could not do. We had a budget of $35,000 when I first came in office. That didn't tell me much, other than I knew that was not a whole lot of money to do anything with. So I spent a lot of time understanding and following other cities who were being very progressive on the redevelopment commissions and how they were being utilized. And the quick answer was they're utilized through TIF areas and through TIF funding. And they're able to get a lot done through progressive growth through utilizing TIF dollars. And so I just started diving into it. I visited cities, Columbus, Carmel, several different cities that are growing rapidly with their industrial parks, with their business developments. And I sit down with every single mayor and every single redevelopment commission president, and I said, how are you doing this? And they go, it's TIF. That's the only way that the state has allowed the cities or the counties even to collect money for development purposes. They've really stripped every tool we have. There's not much left. So when I spent 2 years doing this, I paused because of an overlaying TIF that the state was looking to put on. I didn't know how it was going to affect us. I started working with Jimmy a couple of years ago, and I just said, you know what, I want to sit back and see what state legislature does, because I don't want to create something and then the state comes in and takes it from us or does something that we don't really want. So we sit through about 12 months of legislators going back and forth over it. And AIM has been working very incremental with state legislators so that it protects us and protects our community if they do come into an overlaying TIF district. Right now we have one TIF district, and that is the Wayzata RE property. That's the only TIF district it has, and 100% of those TIF dollars goes back to the bondholders of that property. We get no benefits from that whatsoever. They use that as a tool to attract Wayzata here. That was, I don't remember how many years ago that was, 2010, I believe.
Yes.
I think the bond payments are in 2034, if I remember, is when that TIF is
I'll say at least
expired.
a decade.
So that's how TIF was utilized in our county. That is not how it was utilized anywhere else, just so you know. That was a way to bring someone here because we need an employer here, is what they were trying to do. So we don't really have any other TIF district to benefit from for growth. If you look at Indiana counties, 86 out of 92 counties have TIF. Okay, that's a large number, and it works very effective. The gross AV is over $70 billion, and the incremental AV you can use is $33 billion. That's how they're taking those dollars and they're investing in infrastructure. They're putting industrial parks in, even buildings, cleaning stuff up, cleaning their downtowns up. They're using those dollars to do that. So it's a very effective tool. What I was very careful of is I was always heard about the schools. And so I was very careful walking into this because I think there was a lot of misconceptions on how TIF affects schools and impacts schools. So what we did with the Redevelopment Commission in particular was we have a school board representative on the Redevelopment Commission. They were not a voting member. I said, let's go ahead and make the school board member a voting member on the APC, so that I'm an APC. I'm staying before the APC on the Redevelopment Commission, so that the school has not just buy-in, but they have a say in everything we do now. And we had 100% vote on establishing TIF area in the Redevelopment Commission, so the school understands exactly what's going on. He reports to the school board, so everyone has an understanding of what TIF is. We can answer any questions, but that's really what we're trying to do. Before you should have all of the TIF boundaries. I didn't bring my packet with me. Did they bring them to you?
I don't think so. I don't have.
Well, every parcel is laid out. And so you can't capture residential TIF. There is a residential TIF the state legislature allowed, but it's not for single-family homes. It's more for, Jimmy, you can probably explain the residential TIF better than I can because it's still very confusing to me.
Yeah, that's a mechanism to use the TIF law to capture residential real estate. So the standard residential AV isn't captured in TIF, but if you follow a set of guidelines, if you meet certain criteria, you can establish what's called a HOTIF, which is a housing TIF. But that's not what we're going for here.
Right, no. I don't really see anything we can do with that, but if we want to expand our industrial park, this gives us money to put the infrastructure in, to put the roads in, to purchase the ground. Another illustration, again, I don't know if we're going to do this, but presenting tonight, the Board of Works approved, the City Council is going to approve a federal grant for Western Avenue. We make that a business truck route. It's a $10 million project. Our general fund AV has been flat for 3 years. In particular, our general fund this year went down, so we're capturing less money. So it's hard for us to continue to do projects with less money. And the way to capture money for this is through doing TIF on our businesses, and that's a $10 million project. It'd be a 20% match, so that's $2 million. We don't have $2 million to use on a project like that. And TIF could be used to finance that project because it serves an industrial park down Western Avenue, which we'd like to rehabilitate as well for more growth. So that's just an example of what you can use TIF dollars for. I mean, there's lots of uses. It is very restrictive, which I like. The Redevelopment Commission is very restricted on their use, but that is some of the goals we want to do with it, is really to focus on growth and how do we facilitate that growth. Because we've got a lot of things to do that we need to do to facilitate growth. I know that was a quick overview, and I've been working on this for a long time. It took me a long time just to even understand what TIF was. It was very confusing. But the more I travel around and talk to mayors, that's really how they get stuff done.
So, Chad, we don't have the areas in front of us, so
I wonder why they didn't.
I didn't receive the map.
this boundaries is around businesses and industry, or?
It does
and it
encompass some residents.
excludes residents?
It does, because what we have to do is, you can utilize the TIF dollars. I'll have to get you this. This is the parcel list. I'll have to get you this. I thought you had it, but maybe not.
No, we don't.
We have to use, I'll get you a copy of that. We can only utilize the dollars within the TIF district or the boundaries that touches the TIF district. So what I try to do is create a boundary that captures, okay, we said this is the areas where we can grow or modify or rehab as industrial area. Now how do we connect them? So we found ways to connect them. There's one gap I couldn't fill, but it connects every other way. So there might be some residential areas that are captured. We're not going to capture anything from those because we can't. It doesn't impact the property owner whatsoever, but it allows it to connect so we can utilize those TIF dollars in the certain areas. It's very difficult in the county because we're very long and not very wide.
Yeah.
And so that's what we try to do is make connectors. I was in Columbus and they had a TIF district they were trying to connect, and they actually could connect it using a trail system. The trail system connects his, and they showed a benefit, so they was allowed to use a trail. We don't really have a trail system here. But we were trying to find ways to connect it. So really it starts on the Fifth Street side where the businesses are. It kind of comes down south and it encompasses downtown, so we can utilize some TIF dollars to fix some of our downtown issues that we're having, which is a lot. And then it goes south a little bit down to the transfer station, and it encompasses the industrial park all the way up Western Avenue, up around the Wazetta, which it stays within city limits. And then the new development around Walmart, which I don't know how much we'll capture because assisted living I don't think will qualify for that. But then it goes up 30th Street and around the park. So it really kind of outlines the city, because inside the city is all residential. So then the outside is where we see some development.
I think it takes the entire opportunity zone. I think it encompasses
The entire opportunity zone, yeah.
all of the opportunity zone.
Let's put a little bit more realistic calculations. For instance, if this district today, or when it's frozen, the assessed value is X, then X is supporting all of our taxing entities, continues to support all of our taxing entities and police, fire, all those general fund
Correct.
issues. School, county dollars remain stagnant for the length, which could be 25 years.
Yes, unless we have a population growth, which we're working on as well, which impacts what the schools get per student as well. So the growth helps is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but as far as the general funds, or the current revenue that you're taking off of that district, it'll remain frozen at that level. How do we, if we encompass too much of the area, how do we take advantage of that growth and put on more firefighters, put on more police officers,
Yep.
put on more school funding, property tax
Well, I'll add
funding.
on something else, how's your county council meet budget too?
And how's the county council?
Yeah, well, if we're looking for a budget to increase and we can't do it because it's in that zone, that's it.
Yep, and if we don't grow, how's it impact the county budget?
Well, we are growing, that's the thing, we're gonna see money coming in the next year.
I'm just trying to see what,
How do I fix Western Avenue when the city budget did not grow, it shrunk? How do I
Western
attract
Avenue's been a
businesses?
problem ever since I've been here.
And this is a solution that 86 other counties recognize,
But-
but us.
now,
And it works.
but correct me, you may have already answered the question, but these districts that you've drawn, any of the residential in those districts, they're not frozen, correct? Their assessed value's not
There's nothing we
frozen.
capture from them, so Jimmy, how do you answer that
If their
question?
assessed values go up, it does not
It
impact.
doesn't impact it.
Yeah,
That would
It's
go,
only the business,
The commercial.
commercial and industrial
We're capturing the growth. So,
of the
commercial and industrial,
and
correct,
industrial.
not residential.
not residential. I'll give you an example.
Because the resident, you depend on the residential.
You capture, so if you think about the 1, 2, 3 property tax, 1%, 2%, 3% classifications, you're only capturing the 2 and 3% taxpayers, and then I think there might be 1.5. So if you have like a mixed family commercial, almost like a condo building, some of those get captured, but everything except single family residential, the 1% taxpayers are subject to the free.
Okay, for that, so that's our growth. I mean,
Yeah,
we're hoping we grow our residential.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Plus, if you look at it, this is going to sound bad because we're trying to promote business growth here.
Right.
Which do you capture more AV from, business growth or residential growth? Per square foot on AV, which is the best?
The business.
Residential.
Residential.
By far. Residential AV outweighs business AV by far. It's a bunch. Because if you think a square foot of a factory and what you're capturing on AV versus how many houses in residential can you put in that area, you capture more in residential.
yeah.
So the goal is to, yes, we have to clean our infrastructure up, grow our infrastructure for business, yes, to capture residential growth.
Right.
That is our goal, is capture residential growth.
Yeah.
And we do that by having infrastructure ready for businesses.
Like I said, I thought you had already answered my question, but
No,
I
that's
just
fine.
wanted to make it a little more clear.
That's fine, I wanted to clarify, I want to make it clear as.
I want people to understand,
That's right.
truly understand what we're doing here, because it is, I mean, a lot of times it's like our tax abatements. People really don't understand tax abatements.
Yeah, but.
And I want to try to make this as clear as possible so that,
Yeah, and one of the things with tax abatements, we also have to understand, which is hard, is giving a tax abatement is good, yes. Now, so you bring a company in, they have to increase tax abatement, and you give them a tax abatement, that increases our services. If we don't capture tax on them, how do we increase our services? So there's a fine line with tax abatements on what we capture, what we can't capture, how we negotiate that. I'm currently negotiating one right now. And that's my big question is, this is great, fine and dandy, we want you here, but how do we increase our services? Because it's going to happen, but we have to capture revenues to do that. So it's a fine line, it really is.
we want to make sure that people understand that we don't capture the new residential dollars.
No, it's just,
It's just the commercial and,
it's just the commercial.
Or even improvements
industrial.
on,
And it starts with that base value, whatever the base value is.
yeah.
It's not going back to zero, it's that base value, and it's just.
So
the
we're not losing-
difference. You're not losing anything.
The taxing entities are not going to lose any
Correct.
of their current revenue
Correct.
source.
The goal is to grow residential.
Exactly.
That increases revenue,
Yes, yeah.
big
Hey,
time.
Jimmy, I have a question for you, something to be clear on. If you have land that is a certain use, say agriculture, and that land changes to commercial use, the county still captures the land values of all land, correct? That's not counted in the TIF. The land itself is not, TIFable is not a word, but is not subject to a TIF. If, say I have agriculture land that's paying $1,200 an acre and now it becomes commercial at whatever value that land is, the county still captures that assessed value on the land, correct?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, so it captures the growth in real property. So if there's a parcel, I don't know that this necessarily applies to this area, but if there's a parcel that for TIF purposes has 0 AV, then when it's flipped to a use that has AV, then that'll come online, whatever the number is. So it's a parcel by parcel basis. It'll be the value of that parcel as of the freeze date, which would be 1/1/22 for this proposed area.
So any improvements built on that property will not be assessed, I mean, as a base, because you're just gonna use the land as a base, not any of the improvements.
When it's reassessed, when those parcels are reassessed on an annual basis, the change in AV could be captured if it goes up.
So if you put a $250,000 commercial property on a 1 acre site, does all that go to the redevelopment?
That real property improvement would be captured. The only thing that wouldn't be captured is personal property. So if you have a warehouse and someone comes in and puts in, $100 million of equipment, absent additional steps, which would require designated at taxpayer, then that personal property is not captured in the TIF. Even though they will pay taxes on that personal property, but it's not the same mechanism as real property is assessed.
So all those sites being built up there at Walmart will be assessed as of January as their current value, with the improvements not to be part, all the rest of it be part of redevelopment.
If we can capture it, the first one, the assisted living, no, we're not gonna capture any of that. That building going up, the assisted living.
Oh, it won't be the 2%.
I don't think it qualifies residential TIF as the assisted living, does it?
I think that assisted living probably does qualify for.
Oh, it does, right.
Would be captured.
Yeah, I would think it would.
Okay, I wasn't for sure, but well, it's a kind, like I said, the residential TIF is weird, it's hard to understand. But I was
Some of the questions could properly answered by Baker Tilly, because you start to move into some of almost accounting type questions.
yeah.
So really, if those parcels of that new development up there, if that's part of the parcels, so all of that will be, any growth there will go towards
Captured.
And
capture that.
none of it toward county budget.
I'm sorry,
None of it toward county budget except the value of the land, the assessed value of the land.
but you didn't lose anything. I mean, the assessed value of the land as it grows.
We would be getting that county council for budget if it's taxed normally. And now they're gonna use it for redevelopment.
And the purpose of it is to grow.
You have to get,
For residential growth.
The purpose of it is to meet our budget too.
Well, you meet your budget.
So everybody gets paid at the courthouse and the and the sheriff department and everybody else.
If you continue the common path of population decline, which we are and have been for a long time, how are you gonna meet budget?
Yeah.
We gotta find ways to grow. This is the only tool we have to invest in ourselves that the state allows. And if it continues since the 1980s of population decline, your budgets are not gonna be met. We've gotta change that trajectory, and here's an alternative solution to do that. That's what we're trying to offer and provide. Because if we don't grow, I mean, I've sat through 3 years of a flat budget and decline this year. If we don't grow, it's gonna get worse.
Brian, have we had any commitments up there yet as far as those commercial properties?
I don't believe so, no. Other than the assisted living facility that we approved, God, what was that, 6 months ago? Something like that. That's the only committed on that particular parcel. But or parcels, I guess it's now parcels. It went from parcel to now it's 27 lots, but
So you feel that you can better get commitment to those lots if all they had to worry about was just paying for the land value on their taxes?
I mean,
It won't change their tax.
It won't change their taxes.
yeah.
But what the tax would be will go toward redevelopment instead of
Yes.
going to that budget.
Growth,
Yeah.
Yes.
redevelopment growth.
Yeah. And then if there's no project, if redevelopment has no project, those funds are then released back to the taxing entities. We have no project, if we don't have a project that we're, or if redevelopment rather doesn't have a project that they are paying for, the money goes back.
Can you accumulate that for a project?
That's a question for Jenny.
What was the question about project?
Can you accumulate funds for a particular project? If you have a project?
Yeah, if you have a plan for the dollar, so every year the redevelopment commission will prepare an annual report that's filed with the state, and it'll have fund balances, and then at that point there'll be a determination made if there's any plans for those funds. If there's not, that's when the funds will be released. And if there is a plan or some use for them, then they would remain in the redevelopment commission's allocation fund.
Is there a time limit? I mean, or could they just arbitrarily say, well, we're planning on building the sky, and it's going to take 50 years worth of revenue to do it? Can they arbitrarily just create something like that, or does it have to be a specific engineered plan laid out? And
I think they operate on a good faith basis. So, every year when they make that review, they need to be able to justify to the DLGF and then to the community and the taxpayers that the money needs to remain with RDC for a specific set of purposes, or it needs to be released.
okay,
I'll give you an example. So Western Avenue project I'm currently working on now. That's a 6-year project.
right.
So we have to raise $2 million over 6 years. So that would be a project I'd say, yeah, if we do that, we can commit it for 6 years. I won't see that spent for 6 years, but we have 6 years to do that. So
Okay, year
it's a long
6.
project. If it falls through, then it's not going to happen.
Then, so by,
We'll know pretty quickly if we're going to be able to do this or not.
I mean, okay, all right.
But my goal with Western Avenue, just so you all understand, is to make it a business truck route. I don't want to take State Road 1 away from where it is. We got businesses that locate up there because it's State Road 1. What I want to do is make a business truck route so the trucks follow Western Avenue and don't come down Park Road.
Right.
That's the goal behind that, but that is not a
Similar.
cheap proposition.
Similar to other cities. Have
Absolutely.
create a
Absolutely.
business hub.
That road is not, we get some core samples, that road is not built for everyday heavy truck
No,
traffic. We took the local restriction off so local people could use it, but in order to get heavy truck traffic, it's going to take quite a bit of work. Any other questions while you have me here?
What type of a motion do you need?
It would be
Favorable
a
recommendation?
favorable recommendation, yeah, if you have a favorable.
I would move that we make a favorable recommendation to the city council, Connersville City Council, to approve the redevelopment project.
Who seconded?
Brian. Do you want me to do a roll call?
I have the names right here for the roll call. Okay, Bob Stewart,
Yes.
Dale Munson,
Yes.
Gary Naylor,
Yes.
Brian Durham,
Yes.
Leota King,
Yes.
Brian Robb,
Yes.
Darrell Drew.
Yes.
Okay, we have 2 absent, so we passed by a vote of 7-0, unanimous.
Motion passes. Okay. With no further business, are we going to sign it?
Close the public hearing though.
Do I have a motion to close the public
Was
hearing?
that?
We didn't have,
Oh,
this is just.
No, this is.
oh, no, that's right, that's right.
Okay, I don't remember.
Never mind.
So once everybody signs it, we can.
Yep, then you adjourn.
I'll walk down, grab that from Darryl and walk it back.
I have an Adrian there. It was kind of difficult to talk about what I'd like to do.
Yeah, I kind of wanted that.
And I guess I understand. Pass that to Gary after that. I kind of worked around it, if you noticed.
Well, we fall short on taxes, we'll take it off the commissioner's budget.
Ain't got much there to take. They told us what's on the whole highway.
Now with no further,
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if you could, here you go, and if you could make a copy of this for me to, and get it to me to get a copy of this, there you go.
There's no limit.
Motion to adjourn?
do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.